Oh, I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here on this terrific Tuesday's edition. Sometimes it's tongue-in-cheek, sometimes it's just, well, I want to go there. 949-8037. We want you to join us for our first discussion as we welcome our good friends from the RCIPS together with the NDC. 1:30. You know, we're expecting one of our physicians from the Health Services Authority to share with us. Always a good day on a Tuesday, even better when it comes Monday or Wednesday. So stay tuned for Talk Today.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255. Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Well, good afternoon and welcome, and thank you so much for joining us. You know, some days you're genuinely happy, and some days you say, you know what, I have to be because I should be grateful with all good things. Well, today I can say that I am indeed genuinely happy, not just for what preluded my presence, but because of the wonderful company that I now have. Our good friends from the NDC, Ms. Lisa Hernandez, together with her colleague, Simon Miller. Sir Simon, it's a pleasure, man. Welcome.
Thank you very much, sir. Happy New Year to you again, sir.
Amen, amen. It's going to be a blessed, safe, productive, prosperous, and peaceful New Year for us. Together with PC Watson, PC Jordan Purvis, sometimes we see only your sort of presence out on patrol, making it so that the community we're working together to be safe. And when we see that partnership, hopefully as a society we understand the importance of working hand in hand and not look at authority and point fingers, but look at authority and say there's an example of civility and stability, and an incumbency on us as the citizens to be, meaningful, active, proactive partners. So as we talk about the success that was, the Arrive, what's it?
Arrive Live 345.
That's a voice that one day we'll hopefully hear in the airwaves much more often. Ms. Hernandez.
Christmas just passed. We had need to put that wish in a long time ago, Mr. Sterling.
No, man.
Or wish upon a star.
Yeah, you see, to me, to wish to somebody who has overweight, has fair dust, an unkept beard, I can't deal with that. It has to be practical. So
you and Simon share similar ideas.
It's probably the hair. That's what it is. But what I do like is a very concerted, proactive stance that the NDC has championed together with RCIPS over the years. That despite us as citizens sometimes failing to heed, we sadly can see the consequence of our, misguided behavior. But despite that, maybe we will, going forward from henceforth, start to take on board and appreciate that this initiative should be one that we embrace every day, all year round, so that we get away from having to be told or somehow, promised a carrot, the fair the stick. We do it because it's the sensible thing to do, and we want to be,
Yeah.
So start with you, Mr. Lisa.
Well, I mean, we've been talking about it all day, and I can't rave enough as to how amazing the community has been in taking up the Arrive Alive 345 campaign and doing what they're supposed to be doing, not just for the New Year's Eve and taking the Purple Ribbon Bus, but also for during the actual season and ensuring that, you know, they're designated the drivers, they're taking their pledges, and they're doing their part in ensuring that, you know, it's becoming part of that household you know, conversation. It's a name that's becoming something that's part of the planning.
Yes.
And so, you know, the numbers say it as well. Simon will speak a little bit more to that in just a bit, but it was definitely something. You know, I've been with the NDC for 2 years, going on 3 years now, and this was something that I walked right into in my first year, and I didn't quite understand it. You know, at first, I always thought that it was just for like part animals. But when you get to realize and understand what the thing is about, what the whole concept is, it really is to ensure that the community has something that they can utilize. And you always hear people saying, well, we never get free things and this and that. But you have a whole ride for a whole night for free. And you used it for the last three years the way it's supposed to be used, you know?
If I might, before we ask Simon for the numbers, you know, but PC Jordan, from that perspective, we may, depending on our communities, we may have a perspective about certain initiatives. We see the RTPS lamenting, listen, this is what we're finding from our operations. These are the things that we have to present to the court. These are the sad consequences of, you know, something that has transpired because the person was, you know, driving under the influence. And an accident, unless I misunderstand the definition of the word, you didn't know it's going to happen. That's why it's an accident. But then there are times when, with a little bit planning, a little bit consideration, we could mitigate, if not even altogether avoid some of these things, or if they happen, certainly not be as bad. So with that in mind, and that's the RCIPS's perspective, this program in and of itself on that one day, successful?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yes, in terms of the fact that we're grateful that so many people, and Delisa and Simon will talk about the number of people who rode the bus. We're grateful that so many people took advantage of the opportunity that was presented to them. However, as an organization, road safety is one of our major priorities within the RCIPS. And that being said, we've been running Operation Quaker since summer of last year. And we've been out on the radio stations here a lot of times. We've been putting out press releases. We've done videos with our traffic officers, sending out messages, asking and imploring and begging people to slow down, to not drink and drive, to not drive distracted by using the cell phone or doing various other things, having conversations with passengers, that kind of thing, to ensure that everyone is safe on the road. But at the end of the year, we still had more fatals than we did the year before.
And that's something that,
Yeah.
It is hard. I mean, we're sitting and trying to commend people for their good behavior, but we also feel very, you know, hurtful. Our hearts are heavy because we know, you know, what has transpired, even just the other day. Right?
Absolutely. And one of the things, especially growing up in the Cayman Islands, that I can say without a doubt is that every single person who has grown up here has been affected by somebody who's lost their lives on the roadway. So everybody knows what it feels like to have lost someone. And so for you to blatantly ignore the warnings and the things that you know is right and go out there and still do the wrong thing day after day, it definitely shows a lack of, I guess, self-respect for one, and consideration for yourself, but also for your family. Because if you've been affected by something like that, you know what your family would be affected and how. And that being said, I want to just note as well, our press releases don't call MVAs accidents. We call them collisions.
You know, I'm glad you. I was going to ask you that off air, but because it's not semantics.
No, we call them collisions, and the reason why we call them collisions is that a lot of times they're not accidents. They are deliberate actions that people take that cause an incident to happen.
Expound on that. Deliberate actions that people take. All right. And I'll give you a couple of things I've witnessed. Just okay, but go ahead. If you can.
I'm going out with my friends. Me and Dee, we're going out.
Hold on. You chaperone?
Me and Dee, we're going out.
I'm
And
the shorter one, so maybe.
both of us decide that we were going to drink, and one of us decide to drive. Those are deliberate actions that we both take.
All right.
And in addition to that, we decide that we're going to speed.
Yeah. See, self-control and, as the listener said, an inability or unwillingness to just plan for a second. Was it that we hear in coaching classes, either you fail to plan or you plan to fail. Right? Still the same thing. Maybe sometimes it's the terminology and the labels we attach to things, or you're the designated driver, and we make fun of it. But that is the person, to my mind, in the circles I run in, that we always had somebody who made sure everybody, got home. Not always that person did not only not drink, but it was kind of seen as the paternal, maternal person. We've somehow maligned that person. What PC was from that perspective, though, if we look in the Cayman context and we see the constant presence of policing, we hear the wider community just complaining and almost frustratingly so. Why are these people speeding? Why is this and why is that? And yet it happens daily. The behavior, it shouldn't just be for the police to be there with a bat and a stick and trying to beat people into compliance.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Sterling, and good afternoon to all the viewers out in Radio Land. That's a very good question, and let me start by saying this. Whenever the police sets up a checkpoint on the road, or they see us on the side of the road carrying out a speed operation, everyone who is driving the other way, they flashes their light to get the person's attention. And generally, throughout the world, it means that the police is nearby, either way you're going.
Oh, I thought my cousin saying, yo, bro.
No, that's not what they're saying.
Oh, okay.
And you slow down, the person slows down. So I'm guilty of that. Where there's no police and I'm driving my private car and I see people driving flying past, I got to say that. And I just flash my light to get them to slow down, even though there's no police down the road. Now, it's good that you flash your light and tell somebody to slow down because the police is down there. But what about calling your neighbor or seeing a person next door in the morning when you're walking and say, yesterday when you were driving, I saw you traveling more in excess of 40 miles an hour. That's not right, we can do that.
Yeah.
So then what that does is it puts the responsibility on the person when they get behind the wheel. It's my favorite saying. I've been saying it all morning. Once you go behind a vehicle, the vehicle becomes a weapon. And if you are not responsible enough when you're sitting there, there's going to be havoc. It's going to wreak havoc. And each person that sits behind it should be responsible enough to know that the speed limit on the road is 40 or 25 miles an hour. You should drive within that speed limit. And you shouldn't have to, it shouldn't, you're right, it shouldn't take the police to tell people to do what is right. I agree with you.
I want to invite more of that, and Sam, when we come back from the break, talk about the numbers for the people to understand. But I think it comes down to a cultural ethos. No matter who we are, especially if we're going to be, as you say, in control of our weapon. Sadly, a car can convey us from A to B, but it can be used we're seeing some sad attempts across the globe where people have used them as battering rams, as it were. And that's a deliberate, conscious, reckless, senseless act. But even the inattentiveness, fumbling with the, people still have CDs? Yeah, I do. Or foolishly having something to drink or prescribe medicine and the like. So get to that where, as a society, we understand the importance of how we conduct ourselves in our society, from the trash we pick up to not tossed in the first place, to the dogs being leashed and muzzled, to the consideration of, oh, sorry, I didn't really mean to be smoking up, let me go this way from you. The things that become the cultural norms because they're the sensible things to do. Like speaking to our neighbors, hey, be careful on the road. So.
And I just want to say, and to expound on that point about speaking to your neighbors as well, because I've seen on occasion where a neighbor may have spoken to somebody speeding in their neighborhood and said, hey, you know, I have young children. We don't have a gate. This is a neighborhood. You probably shouldn't even be going the 25 miles that, you know, I know that you were speeding. Could you please just, out of consideration for the fact that children play on these and could run out in the road to go catch their ball or whatever the case may be, slow down. And that person gets defensive and aggressive.
Yeah.
If somebody takes the time to speak to you about an action that you took, it means that it was important enough to them and probably important enough to the community to speak to you. And you should probably be grateful for that, because they could have called the police.
But see, this is where that cultural norm that we need to get to, where we are brother's keeper and we will take on board good counsel. So we'll pause, we'll take the break. When we come back, get a chance to invite our listeners to not only share their thoughts, but at least draw alongside and listen. So please stay tuned for Talk Today.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Families are like branches on a tree. We grow in different directions, yet our roots remain deeply intertwined as one. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, has remained stable, strong, and deeply rooted in the community. The past 2 years have been very difficult, but they have taught all of us the value of family and embracing our loved ones. This 2022, Savannah Pharmacy encourages everyone to get in touch with your roots, embrace your heritage, show some extra love to your neighbor, and make the year a memorable one. Time is precious. Cherish it and those you love. Savannah Pharmacy, always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336 or WhatsApp your Savannah Pharmacy prescription to 929-5045.
King Sports Center takes pride in being more than just an ordinary gymnasium. For 14 years, their multi-purpose facility has been providing the community with a variety of sporting, recreational, and relaxation activities. King Sports Center has a bowling alley, lounge bar, multi-purpose rooms, powerhouse gym, rock climbing wall, bungee jumping, a 10,000 square foot rink, and so much more. For more information on the variety of services, call their friendly staff today at 946-5464 or email kings@candw.ky or visit www.kingsportscenter.com. King Sports Center, your one-stop shop for fitness, recreation, and relaxation.
It's time to update your information. If you've recently changed your mailing address, phone number, or email address, please let your Water Authority customer service team know. Visit our website, www.waterauthority.ky, to download and fill out our customer information update form. Or contact our customer service team at info@waterauthority.ky or call 949-2837.
The Overseas Government Scholarship deadline for the 2022-2023 academic year is Monday, 31st January. To apply for an overseas government scholarship or learn more about the various scholarship programs before the deadline, please visit the recently upgraded scholarship application portal at www.moescholarships.gov.ky or email the Scholarship Secretariat Unit at scholarships@gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions.
Talk today. Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us, and thanks too for the continued partnerships in our communities that help us to recognize that there's safety in numbers, and the more we do together, the better we are, and the more that we champion certain causes, hopefully it'll become something that becomes the accepted norm. This continued partnership with NDC, RCIPS, and many of the partners have shown us that, on New Year's Eve in particular, we are being successful. Simon Miller, together with his colleague, Mr. Lisa Hernandez from NDC, and then from the RCAPS, PC Watts, together with PC Jordan Puri. They're hoping that this media round not only cements the relationship, but also reminds us of a country of the importance. So as we hear it repeatedly today, it may sink in and take us through on a daily basis. But Simon, sometimes the success is in the numbers. Sometimes it's not just a one-off, but a continuation, and we build on it. Give us a perspective.
And the numbers say one thing, Sterling. I think before the break we were talking about, cultural norms and so forth. And I must tell you, I was sitting here and enjoying the conversation. And I am hopeful. Sterling, what I witnessed on December 31st into the 1st of January 2022 was amazing. So I know as a country we can do it. I know when we are called to action, we can step up and answer that. The amount of people who I was seeing who was being brothers and sisters keepers on that night for those couple of hours, it was amazing. I saw DJs stopping in the middle of their sets to encourage people to take the Papa Room bus. Now, I went to 2 different events, stopped in, got off the bus, went in just to walk around, and that's what I witnessed. I witnessed people taking keys because they were, their friends were intoxicated.
They were caring for their friends.
So I witnessed that 2 different locations, 2 different parts of the island. So I know that we can do it as a country. We can slow down. We can put the cell phones down and wait to answer that text message. We can do it because you did it and you showed us that you can do it on New Year's Eve last year, and we hope that will only continue. Just over 2,900 persons, or just under 3,000, depends on how you want to look at it.
Which just sounds
rode
more.
The buses. So and it was wonderful. It's become a tradition of mine. On New Year's Eve, that's where you can find me out there, just making sure everything is running smoothly. We saw a great number of young people. When I say young people, between the ages of 18 to early 30. And I think that was because there was an enormous amount of social media efforts were put into really getting that out there. The police was in full force. You heard Ms. Powry said earlier, the whole exercise has been happening even from earlier in the year. And I think that all of that contributed. So it was more of a holistic approach, and people took time to plan,
continued concerted effort.
I'm going to do the responsible thing.
I think that's where I want us to get to a place where we don't see this as something that's punitive, right? They're not there impeding, because that could happen, and we have the negative consequence. But we see it as something that is preventative, and then at some point we don't need to be reminded. It becomes the accepted practice. Simon, your examples of having friends take keys. There was probably a time ago when the spouse would take the key from the other spouse or the sibling or whichever, and there would be a protest. Oh, I can drive. I drive better, right? But now it's like, even before we asking, here, you take the key, even before, because tonight, and that's where we need to get to, having access to some other mode of transport, like the buses, help people. As you were chatting, I'm thinking back to jurisdictions where there's a hop-on, hop-off service at certain times of the year, certain times of the week, or certain hours of a particular day, that allows people to just move around, just within that space. Maybe something to be considered. But again, from the perspective of policing, for want of a better term, your efforts and resources are spread even thinner, having to now babysit, and teach us something that we should know and should be practiced immediately, and then frustrate that person who's going, oh man, these people don't learn, so you're subject to that. What helps us, PC Watts, to move from being that one is coddled and almost chastised, to the person who this is the norm, this is what you do because it's a considerate, smart, sensible thing to do?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, throughout the season and especially in December where we speaking about spreading our services was thin. We had the recruits who just went into training coming out and working with us, so that helped us a lot. But when Simon spoke about New Year's Eve and going to New Year's Day, we started early on the road. We were out there. We made sure that persons saw us from as early as 7 o'clock. We were just out there in droves. And maybe Mr. Spur will Jordan will touch on that later, but we didn't have too many, from traffic perspective, we didn't have too many traffic-related issues and going into New Year's Day, which was excellent. Yeah. But there were other issues which the factors were alcohol consumption, which took the service away from the road, so to speak, and so but we were able to deal with it, and I thought we dealt with it effectively, and
If I
what PC Watts is trying to say in a very diplomatic way is that we were being drunk idiots out at bars and getting into fights and weapons were involved in a few of those, and people were wounded and went into the new year with stab wounds and bruises. When did we really have to? Because did you really want to be in the hospital on the 1st of January?
The question, I mean, and this is where I keep saying that the psyche of our society, that the cultural nuances, but also the accepted norms. We need to seriously look at where we are globally, but to start with our small community, where we were, how did we get there, where do we want to go? And that may seem to some to be a little bit too, highbrow, but the idea is the behaviors of us. I mean, wouldn't it be better to sit down and have a few drinks in your backyard, sun catch you come with a fish tea, and enjoy that?
I think what it's going to boil down to is just kind of reinforcing the message and starting the message from a younger age, and so that people are raised that way going forward. And I think that is probably where we missed the mark, because again I say the way that we are affected by loss from the roadways, whether it be friends, families, your friend's family, there is no reason why you should be behaving that way, knowing the loss that is there. Yeah. So I mean, I think that it's probably just going to boil down to reinforcement.
Conditioning, but also education. We have some messages coming in. If I could share this one with RCIP. This one is very commending of the initiatives of RCIPS and the presence, and asking if it could be helped, expressing some concern relative to, I presume it's when you're out there doing your ticketing and trying to get drivers to learn, that the shoulders of our roads, the cycle lanes, they're not really many places to pull off. And noticing the police vehicles being parked near the roundabouts or in the cycle lanes, and being mindful that don't put potential accident. PC Watts.
Well, we're aware, and the most common road is Assertivis Highway.
That's what I was thinking.
Yes. And we've gotten some of the cyclists who came over to us and said, it interferes with them, especially when they're exercising. Yeah. So recently what we've done is we try to park as far off the road as possible, and sometimes just passing the yacht drive roundabout, we would park in the open area, which is off the side of the road. Yeah. And we'll focus on persons traveling from West Bay into Georgetown. And we do our speed checks as well, just across from the Kimpton, which is Prince Charles Key. So we actually park the vehicles down inside the road.
Consideration to what's
happening. Watts, tell them what the public says when that happens.
What?
Well, then you see, here's the thing, right? When the officers park away from the roadway, and the oncoming traffic can't see the police cars, they feel like we are holding speed traps rather than being safe. So they think that we're trying to entrap them.
I've heard that.
And that's another complaint.
They actually, people have said that we jump in out of the bush onto the road. But the truth is, let's be honest, if we know Esther Elizabeth Highway, and we all do, there's actually no bush to jump out from. We've stood at, I can tell you this, I am one of those officers who started doing speed in the vicinity of Prince Charles Key, right across from the Kimpton, with persons coming up the hill and then coming down towards the bushhead. And there's absolutely no bush there. I stand literally on the side of the road. Lakeside is another one by the apartment complex. We are literally on the side of the road. Because what I've said to a motorist a few months ago, I'm not going to stand in the middle of the road to get you to slow down, because you should have been responsible enough, knowing the speed limit on the road, to be driving at a safe speed rather than, that's a 40-mile road. And he's driving at 68 miles an hour and saying that I was hiding. If I was standing in the road, you would have seen me to slow down. No, that's irresponsible, you know?
But that speaks to so much more, right? Not only the perception of the policing, but respectfully, us as a community and the way we use our roads, right? I also question sometimes the roads on which we have. The speed limits, should it be higher, should it be lower, should this not, right? But then it comes back to people appreciating. There's a fellow who is, I think he's still, thankfully still alive, celebrated urban planner and he talked about speed limits, sizes of roads, and how we move. So there's a bit of science and study as to what gets people from one point to the next in a fast, safe, efficient manner. The fella in the car that is zooming in and out of the lanes will probably get ahead maybe 30 seconds if he's lucky to the roundabout, the stop sign, much faster than everybody else. But that action of that person is impeding the thousands behind who will now not only be 30 seconds late, but probably 3 hours because we're all braking. Consideration, sensibility, sensitivity. Right? All right, let's take this break. And when we come back, we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to predict who's going to be the next. No, we're not going to do that. Let's pause and take a break. When we come back, more talk today.
Freedom, Cayman Rack. Freedom, Little Cayman. Soft breezes, blue waters, no traffic. Unwind and rejuvenate your mind, body, and soul. Sister Island Staycations, a taste of freedom. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
At Subway, we caramel a lot about our customers, so we decided to give you 2 treats in one with the new Caramel Apple Cookie. Enjoy cinnamon apples, caramel bits, and salted caramel crunch baked in, and topped with a drizzle of caramel-flavored icing. Gooey, crunchy, and yummy. Complete your Subway sandwich, pizza, or salad with the delicious Caramel Apple Cookie or any other cookie flavor and dessert, available for limited time at all Subway locations. Subway, eat fresh.
Families are like branches on a tree. We grow in different directions, yet our roots remain deeply intertwined as one. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, has remained stable, strong, and deeply rooted in the community. The past 2 years have been very difficult, but they have taught all of us the value of family and embracing our loved ones. This 2022, Savannah Pharmacy encourages everyone to get in touch with your roots, embrace your heritage, show some extra love to your neighbor, and make the year a memorable one. Time is precious. Cherish it and those you love. Savannah Pharmacy, always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336 or WhatsApp your Savannah Pharmacy prescription to 929-5045.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And I'm really grateful for this discussion. And hopefully, this year is 2022. It wouldn't be 2022. It wouldn't be another repeat of that. So it'll be 2022.
Oh, please not. Let's not. I just got what you said.
Like I said, pay attention to words. They're important. So the NDC together with the RCIPS, we get this chance, and I'm hoping and praying that as a people we start to take individual responsibility, as PC Watts shared. See, the vehicle as not only a conveyance, but as a lethal weapon if we use it improperly.
Correct.
See, and if I'm incorrect in saying this, guide me. See us as the operators of those vehicles, the ones who are in control, and with consideration, driving safely, sensibly, within the speed limit, so that the police can use that resource to do other stuff. I mean, why? Maybe you needed vitamin D, sir, and go out in the sun all day and set, your radar gun to see if we will slow down. But maybe you could be doing other things to help us better.
Yeah, that's correct. And if I may, at this juncture, let me share earlier when you asked Julian about the, the success and So while it was successful in terms of the amount of persons who took the buses, and we still had numbers, and I'll go ahead and share the numbers now for the viewer, for the listeners. We had, during the month, which was the 2nd of December to the 2nd of January, we arrested 24 persons for DUI.
Wow.
Now, that's not a lot compared to previous years, to be honest. But that's still 24 too much.
How many days in a month?
I think last year we had 54. I think last year we had something like 54.
54, yes.
Yeah.
The previous year.
Yeah.
But that's still 24 too much. So for 2022 and going into 2023, God's willing, we are going to be we don't want any. But, if we're going to have any, then hopefully it's only 4. We had over 30 persons arrested who were either disqualified drivers or persons who were driving who were not qualified to be driving. Now, Sterling, we issued 268 speeding tickets during that month. 268. And for those who know or don't know, it's $20 for every mile when you're stopped by the police. And most, I can tell you that we've issued several of those tickets were maximum fine, which is $500. Wow. And there are persons who we prosecuted for speeding because they exceeded the speed limit or double the speed limit. And the law says we should send them to court where they potentially will be disqualified from driving. Then we had 250 persons who were prosecuted for illegal tints, and we gave out just over 50 cell phone tickets, that's 50 too much, because we know once you're on the cell phone, you're distracted. You cannot focus entirely on the road. It doesn't matter how good a driver you think you are. The reality is Lewis Hamilton doesn't use his cell phone when he's driving, or these guys who drive, and they are experts, yes? And then we had persons, 150 persons who were prosecuted for documentary offenses, which were expired registration, no certificate of ordinance, and insurance. And then we prosecuted a whole lot of persons whose documents are expired for more than a year. Persons just said, we didn't remember that they're supposed to license their vehicles. So that's the negative side to the whole campaign thing. And we, some people may say we take pleasure in giving tickets, or it's not true. I mean, as you said, we could find out there are so many other things that we could be doing. We could be focusing more on the community and stuff like that. But because persons are not responsible enough to use the roads properly, then we have to be out there to, unfortunately enforce the law.
And I say that not to disrespect policing or the public, but I honestly believe that resources are scarce. And why deploy on the regular basis that we seem to have to get us to comply, to follow the speed limit, to abide by the traffic regulations? I mean, I would rather see you guys walk in the neighborhoods and assisting cats out of trees and helping little old ladies. I mean, whatever it is that was the norm back in the 50s, right? Doing things that actually add value to a community, right?
I think that one of the problems that we face is that people don't believe that it can happen to them until it actually does. Yeah. We
do have a caller. Let's go to the phones. PC Watts, I'm sorry, you have to maybe mess your hair up a little bit, but put on the headset. PC Watts, PC Poirier, Simon Miller, together with Delizer Hernandez from NDC. Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, I've been listening here, and there's a lot of important information that's being spoken around that table today.
Yes, sir.
But why aren't we hearing this kind of information more on a regular basis? Because people hear it today, next Tuesday, they forgot all about it. And I think that's where this whole campaign, that various aspects of it that you all are talking about, where you're falling down. You're not, repetition makes, I forget what the cliche is, but if you keep repeating it, people will get it, will, recall it quicker. The fact that you got exposing this kind of information once every month or once every 3 or 4 months does not have the same effect as if you have it going daily. And there's so many aspects of what you see on the road. I mean, you've got the people driving around with bright lights that blinding people. I mean, and never hear anything as far as the information go about, use your dimmer. Don't blind the oncoming traffic or things of this nature. And there are vehicles out there with all kind of lights. You don't know whether it's 6 motorcycles coming down the way and they're going to park. They're going to go to each side of you, 50 feet when they get from you. So, I mean, there's lots that can be done, and it's simple stuff. I mean, the information dissemination thing should be a click with all the radio stations that you've got here in Cayman. You should be able to blanket the community with that kind of information. I mean, I think, 45, 30 years ago, 35 years ago, that's what was happening when there was only basically one radio station here. But the community was blanketed with this type of information. And there was one specific ad that Pastor Alston did, which actually they would ask people who were requesting that don't play it so much because it was frightening people. But that's how you get their attention. So I think there's a lot that can be done to improve safety on the roads. That's simple stuff that you could get people adhering to if you had the repetition all throughout each day, night.
Thank you.
I appreciate it very much, sir. Now, the caller's point, the repetition, and I was just reading something that someone was saying. But then, I think, PC Jordan, you referenced that earlier. Starting, with the young, having that continuing. But
yeah,
there's a role for all of us.
And, I mean, I don't want to, make excuses or anything like that. But again, I would say that, this message has been going on since June last year, continuously on all the avenues that have been that we've been invited to, I should say so, and all the resources that are available to us. We have been trying to put the messages out. So we have social media accounts that we use. We have an Instagram account, a Twitter account, and a Facebook account. And we often do videos with PC Watts right here. He's a movie star.
He is.
And
sorry, I thought with Denzel Washington we talked about.
We do videos with several of our traffic officers, with them giving safety tips and advice, and not just with road safety issues, but general safety advice as well. And we promote those on our website as well as on our Instagram pages. And if, for instance, a media house would like the information as well, we freely give the information or the video over, because we want it to be shared. We want it to be to get the exposure that it needs. And so we welcome any opportunity from any media house or any other marketing agencies who may have an opportunity where we would be able to put the message out there, because again, road safety is one of our major priorities, because it's one of the ways that we lose the most people.
Indeed.
Right. And to bounce off of that, of what Jody Ann has said, is yes, I agree with the caller. I agree that we really need to bring that message out on a regular basis, on a constant basis. But at the same time, while we do that, I think the listeners, the people at home, need to understand that they too have to do their part, because a lot of the time, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, RCIPS, a lot of the people who are losing their lives, a lot of the people who are breaking the rules are the younger generation. And a lot of the time, you either parents are telling them, what could happen, the possibilities. They'll tell them this weekend or tonight, and then it goes on deaf ear. The constant reminder. I've always had the conversation with you, Mrs. Sterling. My parents, I could just be going to McRuss down the road, and they're actually on me. At 30 years old, they were on me. I'm a little bit over that now, but they're still on me. When you go on the road, you have to be that voice in the air, because at the same time, while we try to do our piece, home, the village also needs to do their piece as well.
Well, we certainly want to invite that continued dialogue. That's why we're so grateful for this partnership with NDC. But in closing, maybe on the caller's point into what PC Jody Ann was sharing, maybe that continued partnership. It may or may not be the buses every weekend. It may only be select weekends, public holidays. But it may be that on a continuing basis, all of the licensed establishments, through signage, through reminders, through decals and the like, just as the patrons come and go, are continually exposed, informed, and guided. Hey, this is the kind of society we want. It may not happen overnight. It may take a concerted effort over a generation, but we'll get there. I crave for another minute, but in closing, Jody, see if you want to share anything from the NDC's perspective, then PC Jody.
Overall, I am really happy that we have continued this partnership with the RCIPS, with Compass Media, as well as Radio Cayman, and ensuring that our listeners are educated with ways in which they can ensure that they stick to the law and they do what they have to do is right during the holiday season. We'd love for people out there who are listening and who have a bit of a heavier pocket than most of us and could support this initiative throughout the year, so that we do have other persons doing what they're supposed to do throughout the year as well. But also, I'd like to thank the supporters. I'd like to thank Everything 345 and Cayman Mall Road for also putting out our message on social media, because at the end of the day, we do have a fair amount of young generation as well, as Simon alluded to earlier, taking the bus, also our sponsors and supporters, but definitely Radio Cayman for having us on as often as you have us, supporting this initiative for 21 years. And I commend you guys as well for ensuring that you get the messages out there for us.
Thanks.
Mr. Ebanks, if I may, I want to do an appeal quickly. One of the issues that we struggle with here in Cayman, and as a traffic officer, everybody knows I'm very passionate. I'm an accident reconstructionist. I get called to all the fatal and the serious accident scenes. And at hit and run collision, which occurred on the 31st of August 2021, a lady was hit on Anderson Square, just up the road from where we are. She was struck by a vehicle and she was left to die. We don't know what's going to happen. She's still on a machine in the hospital. She's still on life support. And the culprits are out there. And somebody knows who did it. So this is where the responsibility, this is where the village comes in, this is where the community comes in. They know who was driving that vehicle that shot that woman. She was a mother, a sister, someone's child. And so we need the public to come forward with that information, because they know who did it.
How would the public initially, best get some information to you if...
Well, the Traffic and Roads Policing Unit, their telephone number is 649-6254, and you can call them directly weekdays and on weekends as well, and on weekends as well during regular business hours. Additionally, if you do not want to come forward yourself, but you have the information and you want to provide it to us anonymously, there are various ways you can do that. Crime Stoppers is still active on the island. You can go to caymancrimestoppers.ky and provide information, and the information that you provide will allow you to get a reward based on the results of the investigation. Additionally, on our website, you can provide information either anonymously or confidentially. It's your choice. So you control the information that you provide to us. On there as well, you have the ability to upload multi-image files. So you can send us videos, you can send us pictures, you can send us voice notes, whatever it is. And once those come through, they will be allocated to the various departments that they are assigned to. And that being said, that would be the traffic department in this case.
Okay. Thank you. And I hope that that appeal resonates with someone to do the right thing, and our prayers with the lady, because it's, as you said, that is someone, thank you all very much for this time. Thank you very much for that continued concerted effort over the year. Looking forward, Mr. Dissa, with other things. And Denzel, PC I saw the videos and I keep thinking, how did they get Denzel to do it? Now I realize.
Mrs. Sterling, I just also want to say thank you to our NDC partners for allowing us to be a part of this Arrive Alive 345 campaign. This is my third year also working on it, I believe. And so, it's been a journey. I've seen the ups and downs of it, and it's hard work. We start from the summer, so for New Year's Eve. So it's very good to see that it was such a success, and the results not only show in the number of persons that rode the bus, but also in the incidents that happened on our roadways, which was very, very limited. So thank the public as well for behaving.
We can do it.
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
All right. Let's pause and take a break, and when we come back, we invite you for some sessions with the councillor. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Satisfaction is guaranteed 24 hours a day, whether it's music or information.
From Grand Cayman to Cayman Brac to Little Cayman, we've got you covered.
You ever hear a thing like that?
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
Your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
With your latest headlines, I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins. On Saturday, January 8th, 2022, the Air Operations Unit, while conducting coastline patrol in the Beach Bay area of Bodden Town, spotted suspicious activity. Officers responded, and during the search of the area, 2 vehicles were recovered containing a large quantity of ganja. A number of persons believed to have been involved in the importation of the recovered drugs fled the location on foot. An extensive search of the area was conducted, however, these persons were not located. The matter is being investigated by the police. In international news, the World Health Organization has warned that half of Europe will have been infected with the Omicron variant of COVID-19 within 6 to 8 weeks. The projection was based on the 7 million new cases reported across Europe in the first week of 2022. The number of infections has more than doubled in a 2-week period. A U.S. man has become the world's first person to get a heart transplant from a genetically modified pig. 57-year-old David Bennett, who doctors say was too ill to qualify for a human heart, is doing well 3 days after the experimental 7-hour treatment. The surgery is being hailed by many as a medical breakthrough that could shorten transplant waiting times and change the lives of patients around the world. But some are questioning if the procedure can be ethically justified. They have pointed to potential moral trouble spots over patient safety, animal rights, and religious concerns. In 2019, a Fresh Prince of Bel-Air fan came up with an idea to reboot the sitcom as a gritty drama. 3 years on, and the show's star Will Smith has made it a reality, and the first real trailer has been revealed. Instead of the breezy comedy of the 1990s original, the new show, simply titled Bel-Air, involves guns and a hardened Philadelphia criminal. Will Smith has developed the new show with the fan who made the original trailer, aspiring filmmaker Morgan Cooper. These are your headlines. I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette, brought to you by the Ministry of Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
Following the storm of 1932, Cayman Brac, under the initiative of Commissioner A.W. Cardinal, engaged in several different industries to boost their recovery efforts. Sharks were actively fished for their skins, which were then shipped via Jamaica to New York. For perspective, one good shark skin over 35 inches could feed a family for a week. Egging became more common. The practice of egging meant traveling hundreds of miles to the Sorana, Pedro, and Morant Cays and collecting birds' eggs and then shipping them direct to Jamaica. The eggs would value at £4 per thousand, with the season record being 291,000 eggs collected. Cattle and goat hide tanning was also a trade unique to the Brac by the Lazari family in Northeast Bay. Its leather products supplied the sister islands and was exported to Jamaica and sold in Grand Cayman.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette, brought to you by the Ministry of Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands.
Wouldn't it have been grand if you had purchased land 30 years ago? It may not be 2020, but a perfect vision has never been more clear. Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, poised for growth with an eye on the future. Your land, your history, your future. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
You see how hard it's raining?
Yeah, and I don't have time to fight traffic and get my lunch from Subway. I have so much work to do.
Why don't you order Subway by using the Let's Eat or Bento app? Save time, stay dry, and get your sandwich fast.
I never thought of that. Great idea. I'm going to order now.
Order me a veggie pizza while you're at it.
And a cookie platter for the office.
Too busy at work or home? Is the rainy weather stopping you from dining out? Order your favorite Subway sandwich, wrap, or pizza through the Let's Eat or Bento app with fast and reliable delivery. Subway, eat fresh.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thanks for joining us. Going to be some open line until 1:30, and going to have an excellent opportunity to speak to Dr. Rhonda Reeves as we get a chance to share with the continued partnership with the Health Services Authority. Now, we're going to discuss with her, but cervical cancer, it is a month of awareness, but we get a chance to chat then. Now, in the meantime, I want you to give us a thought, on whatever perspective. We're looking at a number of things in our communities, and perhaps the question is how, as an individual, we can exercise greater responsibility, for our actions. Take, for instance, we need to get from one point to the next. We are driving. How are we driving? Are we attentive? Are we rushed and perhaps only in our minds slightly exceeding the speed limit? Does that get us there faster and as safely as otherwise? Is it that there are others that are just driving in a very inattentive, fast, and perhaps some would say in a potentially dangerous manner? Well, how do we respond to that? Is it that, as PC Power identified earlier, someone said something to us, perhaps a coworker, a neighbor, even a family member. You've been driving fast recently in the neighborhood or just generally. How do we take that on board? Do we get upset and argue? And then do we calm down and then say, what, they're right, I should do something with that? Or do we take it then and there going, man, it's just been so rushed and stressed and pressured? How do we respond even when people are trying to help us? Not only would that avoid potentially a speeding ticket, some sort of collision, as PC probably says, no longer an accident, or something even, more serious and grave. Are we taking, like anything else, what is shared with us in a loving, considerate way, so that we take it on board and help us? Well, we may not. So let's look within that level of individual responsibility and expectations of ourselves, not of others. 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. I know that a number of individuals have privately, and a few even publicly, been sharing that they're looking, increasing that governments. Doesn't matter what the government of the day is called. We've elected that government. It's prepared a budget. It's going to be expending money, whether it's $1 billion budget or whether it is, allocation of a few $1,000s to something. Are we getting value for money? And increasingly, a number of you, I must share that for what it's worth now, other than a cursory look, I've been very mindful not to engage too much into some of the discussions, mostly to listen, to try to understand the perspective. It may seem obvious as to why I would probably just hold back for now, but in any event, it's the decision that I've taken. But many of you have weighed in that they propose $21 million for the beach restoration, like so many other things. Is it the best use of money at this time? But on that one specific issue, some have asked, well, how do we know that we'll get the outcome that we want? How do we know that $21 million will be enough? Maybe we need to add another, $50 million to it. Or we start with 21, but we end up at $100 million and we don't have a clue. Or after we spend the first $5 million, we realize, this is just basically money down the drain and we stop. But that's $5 million or 500,000 or 50,000, whatever the sum is, that has been wasted according to some of the perspectives that some of you have shared. And then a few others have looked at other areas of expenditures over the years and wonder to what extent government is seriously looking at its recurrent expenditure and trying to figure out how to make sure that it's more efficiently spent, we get the most from it. It's proposed new expenditure. How are we allocating that? And one individual in particular, as he weighed in to the discussion, I think it is people like that with the level of expertise, but also experience. As I've said to him, and perhaps he felt a little bit like I was trying to push him in a direction that he should be a little bit more public. Well, it's because to do otherwise and to keep quiet as he has is doing a disservice to the country, in my humble perspective, but also to his intellect and expertise, but that love and genuine passion that he has for the country and wanting to see the very best for his people. But he said if you go through the budget, there are a lot of little bits and pieces, and sometimes they're lumped together. So maybe the size, the sheer volume, of the budget document in itself will deter some. How many of the parliamentarians have sufficient time and the resource to go through it properly? And when they sit there to vote for something, is it a case that they're genuinely voting from a truly informed perspective, or are they just going along, or any proposed amendments, if they could be sort of set forth in a way that it may increase a budget or move a certain sum from one area to the next in order to get better use. Where, he says, is that level of public discussion, and should there be, is the question I asked him, when the government proposes a budget, as it does when it proposes new legislation. So should there be a consultation period that the government says, we're going to be putting forward the budget in 3 months' time, in 21 days' time, and this is what the budget will look like. What is your perspective? Do you think that should be a practice of our government, irrespective of what maybe the norms in other jurisdictions, that the government is going to decide that this is how the public funds are going to be expended, just like it does with sometimes proposed legislation, with other things, it puts it out for public consultation. Should we do that? Because at the end of the day, it's not about micromanaging, it's about being as best as possible informed beforehand. You get a chance to talk to your parliamentarians about it. They may be able to hold a meeting and say, listen, in the new budget, the government is going to allocate $100 million for a new courthouse, $100 million for a new prison. They're going to spend an additional $50 million on policing, or they're going to spend, another $5 million on this, or whatever the case is, you may look at it and say, from the Trini perspective, well, they're going to spend 100 million, but they really need to spend, 500 million. Or, well, they could spend all they want, but they won't really get anything for it because it doesn't work. Here's why. And then it gives that parliamentarian a perspective to go in and have a meaningful contribution. But it might also allow us to say, well, if you combine that expenditure with that expenditure, here's an outcome that you were looking for that actually is more cost effective and timely. Now, some hearing that would question, well, wait a minute, why are we, tying the hands of those we've elected in a democracy? They should just go and do what they want. Then some would say, well, at the end of the day, the budget is probably done more by the unelected arm of government, the civil service, where the politicians weigh in and say, well, can you find some money for this because here's a project that we want to do. Well, should that be the practice? If it is it possible for that practice to be improved? Would greater public participation? Now, in that, despite the opportunity to weigh in with any comments, it's important that when that's offered, that we do so. How many of us actually comment when there's an invitation to do so, whether it's legislation or whether there is some other proposal? We look at the National Cultural Policy, for instance. Many of us probably have had very, very, I wouldn't want to say derogatory comments, but perhaps less than complimentary views. But how many of our comments were shared, good or bad? How many of us made the time, felt that we had the time to participate in some of the initiatives, in some of the committees or the like, in order to help formulate some of the policies, or to review certain things to see if there were better ways of doing things or new ways of proposing and how things could be done. And probably there are very few, if any of us, who would say, well, we have all the time in the world that we need to do what we need to do. We're probably saying it's not enough time to do all the things we want to do. That's maybe we're not prioritizing, maybe we're just not, properly managing our time and our resources. And even though it's easier said than done, for some of us, we're probably not even recognizing that we are, in fact, doing such. Well, your perspective, 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255, or WhatsApp 925-3261. And then as we go into the new year, looking at, almost the first half of the month of January is already sort of under our belt. We've got the remaining months in the year, and for some of us, it's the expectation is going to be better. For some of us, it's a continuation of the bad, and for others, it's just no care, no concern, and they just go with the flow, and whatever happens, not just daily but hourly, they just go along. And then there are those who want to plan and prepare so that they can, in fact, make each day, each month, each year not just more profitable and prosperous, but peaceful. So how are we going to achieve that? Are we going to do it individually, or are we going to draw alongside others for a collective partnership? Well, that answer lies within our efforts. Are we going to pause and take a short break? And when we return, we're going to invite Dr. Rhonda Reeves to our studio and have that discussion. So please stay tuned for Talk Today.
At Subway, we caramel a lot about our customers, so we decided to give you 2 treats in one with the new Caramel Apple Cookie. Enjoy cinnamon apples, caramel bits, and salted caramel crunch baked in, and topped with a drizzle of caramel-flavored icing. Gooey, crunchy, and yummy. Complete your Subway sandwich, pizza, or salad with the delicious Caramel Apple Cookie or any other cookie flavor and dessert, available for limited time at all Subway locations. Subway. Eat fresh.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
For the record.
For information that matters to you, the people. Hear from the government, the opposition, independents, and other experts on issues and solutions that affect you.
For the record.
Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, tune into 89.9 and 93.9 FM for Cayman's Straight Talk Morning Show. For the record.
I invite you to join me for the record. You are invited to be a part of this interesting and informative show. Embrace the opportunity to dialogue with your legislators, policymakers, and those charged with policy implementation.
For the record.
Brought to you by
Coca-Cola. Available across the Cayman Islands from Tortuga Distributors.
Accept no substitutes. Taste the feeling with Coca-Cola.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year!
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome.
Guess what? We're back. And we wish you a Happy New Year from the Flex family.
This week on the Flex, we will be having caring teachers. The word of the week is adulting.
I'm adulting. Don't make fun of my adulting. That's insulting.
Spell it.
ADULTING. It is a noun that means the practice of behaving like a responsible adult, especially the accomplishment of mundane but necessary tasks.
And maybe some other adulting Flex family will pass through.
Hi! How are you? You can join us this Wednesday from 4 to 5 p.m. right here on Radio Cayman, 89.9 FM. Youth Flex, a program for all people by young people. Youth Flex, more than talk.
When I look at where I'm coming from, I know I'm blessed, and I close my eyes and smile. Sometimes I feel...
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thank you so much for joining us. And it's really, truly a pleasure to be able to have in our studio Dr. Rhonda Reeves as part of our continuing partnership with the Health Services Authority. And I look at our society and genuinely, Dr. Reeves, feel positioned that we are in such a good place to have public discussions on many things, to look at the state of both our health system as well as the education system, and the investment by individuals and corporate entities as well as governments to improve it. The respect and accessibility that the public has makes it so that in time we're stepping forward every day in a positive direction. So to you and your colleagues, we thank you for your continued efforts.
You're welcome.
It is a very, very different time, I think. I sit sometimes and just think about what has transpired in history, and they're replete with examples of many things. I think about what could transpire in our lives in 5 years, in 50 years. And right now, it's not unprecedented, but certainly there's a level of uncertainty and unpredictability and seemingly willingness to yield and wield power by some, the public yielding its autonomy, and the forces that be wielding its power in a way that causes some disquiet amongst women. But your practice, the commitment to your oath to see us in this share has to continue despite what. So at the outset, if I can, how has this been impactful with all the new norms and the protocols, accessing patients, family members coming to see patients following something, or even coming to sort of accompany them when they're making their regular visits and what have you. Different world, huh?
Yeah. It has truly put our Hippocratic oath into practice.
Yeah.
Despite whatever, we are essential.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
we show up.
Thank you for that.
That's pretty much what we've been doing.
Yeah.
We showing up.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it. So we just know that, we have to, respect our Hippocratic oath before all else do no harm.
First do no harm.
So we show up, but then we always have to remember that we have to show up in your safety too.
Right.
So
I can imagine it must create, unless, well, this is my perspective. There are certain professions where the person feels there's a calling for that. They didn't look for a job or paycheck or prestige. There's some who do that, but the sustainability that, they feel that pull within them that to answer that calling. And here, as a physician, you've had the initial years of study to qualify, and then the continued study to keep you sharp. And now we have your patients, the challenges of getting sometimes a patient to, hey, come on in, don't be afraid, come in, make sure with you, and then getting the treatment regimen. Yep. Wow, I can only imagine, man. It could be a logistical nightmare at times. All right, cervical cancer. In this month, we're talking about it. What is cervical cancer? If that's maybe a good place to start.
That's a good place to start because still a lot of people don't know, and that's the whole point of the Awareness Month, to let you know what it is, that it exists, what you can do, what causes it, what you can do to prevent it, and pretty much it's pretty simple in the name. Your cervical comes from cervix. It's a part of your female anatomy. So you have to be a female to get cervical cancer, first of all. And your cervix is what you call the neck of the womb. So it's like that little funnel part that opens to let the baby out, let your menses out. So that part is called the cervix. It's at the top of the vagina. And cervical cancer is pretty much a cancer of that part of your uterus. So that's what cervical cancer is.
Wow. And I think sometimes we don't understand the significance of what's happening within us, and those not just frequent checks, but actually getting checks. Our physicians, and maybe now, as I was sharing earlier, maybe we're not as motivated to go and get our checks.
And so it's funny that you said it's something peculiar because in terms of cervical cancer, what I always tell persons is that the significant thing about it is it's preventable. It's like the only preventable cancer. So whereas you'll talk when we have breast cancer awareness in October, they talk about early detection. That's completely different from what we talk about in January when it's cervical cancer awareness, which we talk about prevention. So it's preventable. It's not just find it early and treat it. It's you don't need to get it.
Okay, and that is encouraging. And maybe for some people, they probably hearing this for their first time, or actually is registering. If sure they heard it before, but really that's true. So how is it preventable? I mean,
so the reason it's preventable is the same kind of things that we'll tell you about in breast cancer awareness, where you have to, fund cancer research and stuff. Cervical cancer has gotten its research. So they were able to find out and know what causes it. And if you know what causes something, that's how you can prevent it.
Right.
They also knew how to screen it. So whereas you do mammograms to find something, when we do our pap smears, we're finding stuff and we're moving to find it from the point it hits from normal to that first little funny cell that we know if you leave it there, it will become cancerous. So it becomes preventable for one, we know what causes it, which we later get into. It's caused by a virus. Funny enough, we've had a lot of viral talks. So
I'm glad
we're going to talk
that.
about the virus. We know how to prevent you or protect you from that virus. And we also know how to access that particular part of the body, the cervix. It's very easy to access. So it's not an internal organ that you have to cut your body open to get to. We just know that we just, look at the top of the vagina. We have access to it. So we're able to basically sample cells from it. And that way pick up on a timeline, when did you switch from being normal to the first strange cell that we can get to before it goes and gets to a cancer cell? So that's how it becomes a preventable cancer.
All right, so speaking to Dr. Rhonda Reeves, and you're the head of the women's health. All right, make sure I get the titles correct. And why I say that is because here we have, I think, too often in our communities, we're not sufficient appreciative of the access that we have. I've said this many times, hopefully as respectful as I intend. Our parliamentarians, these are our classmates, some of they are our neighbors, these are people that we know, go to church with, we socialize. and we're accessible. Let's not abuse that. Let's not ever get to a place where that level of access is compromised because of fear of safety. Just like with the physicians, we can call up at HSA and, this is John, I have a question about something, and chances are that message is going to get passed to somebody sufficiently positioned that the call will come back with information. Then you get an appointment, you come in. Here we are talking to you as the head. Many jurisdictions, you'll be 10 layers deep, and you're only talking to the assistant, to the assistant who's the assistant of the assistant who was just starting work yesterday.
Right.
So I appreciate the respect you have for our public to now come and talk to us. It is preventable. The screening for it is what? The pap smear?
The pap smear is the screening, yes.
Okay. I haven't had mine. I just kidding. I shouldn't try to be funny. This is serious.
I started and said it was only for females.
I know. But we hear from our spouses and the ladies in our lives, from our mothers or daughters or sisters, and something, abnormal T cells, it was, something.
I thought you were going to tell me that they would tell you that they don't like the pap smear because they're uncomfortable or something. I thought that was what you were heading to.
I may have heard that, but I won't say that. I'll leave that to you.
You leave that to me. Okay.
So what? Okay.
So,
actually.
So we can talk about the pap smear first, because that's the first hurdle to get you to get to that part.
Okay.
Because it is out there. I've had lots of people come, and when we get to that point in the conversation, they're like, I don't want to do that. I heard that hurts.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, there's a difference between something being hurt and something being painful and something being uncomfortable. I never lie to my patients. If it's going to hurt, I said, it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
And I said, it's not going to hurt, but it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. You have to be in a position. You probably would have just gone in to see your doctor there, in your private area. So I tell them that's a level of discomfort.
Yeah.
And then when we actually get over that level of discomfort, the procedure in doing it, it kind of feels a little bit like somebody pressing on the tummy. That's a discomfort. It's not hot. It's not painful. But if somebody's pressing and pushing in your tummy, that will be it. So that's an uncomfortable feeling. But I say to them, look, it's going to be 10, 20 seconds. And that 10, 20 seconds could be something that saved your life.
Right.
And back in the day, when I started med school, it was something that you had to do every year. They found out with all of the research that the pickup rate, if you do it every year or every 2 years, is kind of the same. So, that's even further to your benefit. You don't have to come and do it every year. You can come every other year. So if every other year you get your pap smear done, you're way ahead of the game in terms of prevention to begin with.
Okay.
And what the pap smear does, it's really just like if you were in high school biology class and you did the cheek swab cells and look it under the microscope.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
So we do a little swab of the cervix. So the cervix is like a little tunnel. We do a little swab of it. We send it to the lab. They look under the microscope, similar to what you did at your cheek cells. And that's where you came with the abnormal cells. So you'll have your normal cells, and that's when you'll go, your pap smear is normal. You're good for the next 2 years. Leave it alone. And they'll say, this cell doesn't look normal. And I always tell persons there are stages of abnormal. So you have a gray area where this doesn't look normal, but it doesn't look fully abnormal yet. And even from that section where we don't really know what it is, we put, like a red flag here, and we tell you, look, we need to repeat this. We're not leaving it for 2 years again. We want to repeat this. So they might call you and say, I want to repeat this in 6 months. I want to see what that cell is doing. And the cell might revert to normal, and we know, okay, it was, not something specific. Or we might repeat it in 6 months and say, okay, now it's changed to look at something strange, and then we can treat it. So that's how it becomes preventable, because we can track it and know exactly when it starts to become abnormal and remove that abnormal cell before it stretches.
Right.
And that's where the pap smear comes in, because we found out that those persons who came in, did their pap smear, we found that something was abnormal or cancerous. They had not done their pap smear in 5 or more years.
Oh, okay.
So we actually know a timeline. So if you come in and you're like 5 years have passed, alarm bells come up, we need to do this. Something could be there.
Okay.
The time in that 5 to 10 years now, then you might move from something that is pre-cancerous to cancerous. So we know that there's a 10-year window. If you haven't done your pap smear, you're supposed to have been doing it. You haven't done it in 10 years. You're high at risk for us finding something abnormal.
Okay.
So that's where the pap smear comes in, and the abnormal cells coming in terms of that.
And once the physician has now sent the sample to the lab, that's the lab here at the HSC, or does it go overseas?
No, it's local.
Right. So it's a turnaround time then?
The turnaround time
quick.
is within weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, and I think part of it too, and I want to ask this, hopefully people listening, because I'm sure there are many of us listening we don't pay sufficient attention. We ignore something until it's to that point, and then we regret it. And maybe getting this repeatedly, sort of drilled to us, we get to a point. The patient, the female patient has come to see you, done all this stuff, the results now will come back. There needs to be a communication from the physician's office to the patient.
Yes.
Okay. How does that take place? How long?
So back when I just started here, we used to mail it out. I think COVID was also a little learning process because we started to realize we mail things out, persons wouldn't get it. They've been at home, you don't get it. We started to realize that some persons have their mail go to their office. And that was now a breach of confidentiality. So when we're telling you to sign up for patient portal, that's one way of you getting, because it's password protected.
Right.
So we'll post it there, you can get it. And we have a system where, okay, you can post it, you can get it. If you're not, tech savvy, you can't get it. I personally tell my patients, look, if there is something wrong, I will hunt you down. I will call every number on the system. I will find if there's a relative's number on the system. I will call the relative and say, get in touch with us. So we will contact you with that abnormal and say, you need to come back in and get this sorted.
And I don't want to misunderstand, but I certainly don't want to alarm. When the physician says, like you say, it's abnormal, you want to repeat it. It doesn't mean that
it does not necessarily
just means that you want to be
it's
absolute.
Cancer. Because remember, I said that it starts off with that gray area. So which is why you tend to not want to give that information over the phone either.
Right.
So I know as soon as we said, we got your results, we need to come in for a discussion, everybody is kind of like, they come into the office like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And you just see it and you're like, look, it's not bad. And that's when you have the explanation about the levels of abnormal, where you are at and what we're doing.
Okay.
But we just don't want to be like, oh, it's just a little bit abnormal, leave it. We jump on it from that point. So when we call and say, it's abnormal, come in, we're not going to tell you over the phone what level of abnormal, but we want to make you come in and understand.
Okay. Help us to understand that level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, what are those levels?
So you have stages. So this is more clinical than anything.
But that's fine. I'm taking notes.
When you get your
pap test after this?
Yes, it's a test result. It's how the test results come back. So they'll tell you it's normal. They'll tell you it's abnormal, and they'll use little terms. So they might use like a term like ask us, which is why most of the times when persons see it, if they go onto the portal and they see it, they're like, what is this? I don't know what this is. So you have ask us, which is what I call the gray area. It means abnormal cells of undetermined significance. So it's abnormal, but we don't know the significance of it because we just don't know. So that's the one where if you get that, we might say, we're going to repeat this in 6 months until it declares itself. It's either going to revert to normal, and which, because we don't know the significance of it. So it can sometimes, it turns back to normal cells. Or it continues to progress into a further abnormality. And at what point in time we'd have to treat. So that's the first one they'll call ask us. And then they'll have something that's called, back in older, I think it's easier to tell the older system, they'll use numbers. So they'll have a CIN1.
Right.
And that CIN1 is like, okay, cervical intraepithelial neoplasia, that's a fancy name for it. But it's just like level 1. They have level 2, they have level 3. So you'll see a CIN1, a CIN2, a CIN3. And then after you get to there now, the next step of that would be carcinoma in situ. Like, this is now cancer. And we're going to check, has it spread? So that's where I mean by levels. So that's the easier system I'm telling you. The other system is a little bit more
I think this is why, too, when you reference the patient portal or even getting a phone call, as the patient, I'll ask you just for clarity and from my own perspective. Sometimes we go to the physician, just a simple blood work, and everything's good, and we accept it. But we don't, for whatever reason, we don't want to seem embarrassed. We don't want to intrude.
Right.
We don't take the time to ask for explanation. Well, what does this number mean?
What does this mean?
You've tested for creatine, or you tested for this, and well, what is that? Because we don't want to seem like we're dumb. The doctor said everything's good. Yeah, but do you understand what that means? So in that case, whether it's the portal, or whether it's the phone call, or whether it's in person, as the patient, what should we just walk out and say, oh, well, that was good, dodge the bullet? Or do we get into a discussion to fully...
I never think it's okay for somebody to just be like, okay, and leave. I always be like, do you understand what I said? Yeah, what did I say? Because some people, like you said, they don't want to feel dumb, so they're like, yeah, I understand. And then when you ask them to tell you back, they're like, Different people understand things differently.
Right.
I might have explained it to you and it went straight over your head. And when you tell me that, I might choose a different way to explain it that you understand. That, I think, is the basis of health. If you don't understand, if a patient doesn't understand their condition and they understand how severe or how mild it is, they'll never know how to treat it accordingly. Right. Okay. So if there is something that is bothering you and you don't know, ask. And sometimes this is different for a physician. Some physicians do not like persons going on the internet and Googling things. Yeah. But we are in an information age. People are going to do it. So if you go and you Google something, you can come and you can be like, well, I read this. What does this mean? Or, a lot of people kind of come and be like, well, I read it and I saw it on Google, so it's right. And it might be that you might have read it from not a reliable source. You might be confused about what you read. So, yes, you can Google it and you can read it, but you can come and be like, well, I read this. What does this mean?
Would be much better.
So, there are other ways that you can find out your information. So, if it's somebody, like you said, they would see the CIN on their patient portal or whatever, they could go probably just Google it and read it, so they'll have an idea of what the conversation will be when they get to the doctor.
Like anything else, be prepared and be your best advocate.
Yeah.
All right. So when we come back, we can ask, about the timing, the age, and different things, and understand. And to our listeners, I'm honored that the Health Services Authority, like the majority of our physicians across, their investment in our health and well-being. Yep. So with this partnership, gives us a chance to learn and to listen as we draw alongside. So stay tuned for Talk Today.
Okay.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab. Blood test, x-ray and mammogram, all of that is MedLab. Affordable fees and friendly service, a full professional team. MedLab is always comfortable, MedLab is always clean. For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Call 949-7331 and ask about MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Families are like branches on a tree. We grow in different directions, yet our roots remain deeply intertwined as one. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, has remained stable, strong, and deeply rooted in the community. The past 2 years have been very difficult, but they have taught all of us the value of family and embracing our loved ones. This 2022, Savannah Pharmacy encourages everyone to get in touch with your roots, embrace your heritage, show some extra love to your neighbor, and make the year a memorable one. Time is precious. Cherish it and those you love. Savannah Pharmacy, always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336 or WhatsApp your Savannah Pharmacy prescription to 929-5045.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And thanks to Dr. Rhonda Reeves for sharing with us. And, this discussion on cervical cancer and even the stuff could for some. I know initially for me, just trying to prepare, just to understand. I biology and in geography, she laughs. I shall be. But it's good to, as you said, as a patient or as a client, as an informed consumer, you're going to buy a car. What car are you going to buy? What can you find out about the car? Yeah, talk to, friends who know cars, mechanics. And then when you go to the dealer, you have some understanding of what you're doing. Likewise, go to the physician. But in this case, you're going to a trained professional who has more competence and expertise and experience in this area. But you go in with a semblance of wanting to understand and a desire for knowledge. So maybe as informed consumers, patients, we could help ourselves by engaging in that dialogue. All right, so I understood what the cervix is. I thought it was something, it was a computer thing. Now I know what it is. It's only in women.
Yes.
I learned 2 things today. That should be.
Yes.
The pap smear. And I know for some people this discussion, they're talking about it on air. You should see what we were talking about yesterday.
I didn't listen yet.
I just teasing. What about the age at which women, females, okay.
So I'm gonna divert a little bit, because the age is gonna come into age is gonna be the context when we talk about vaccines and when to do it. So I'm gonna just step back. I told you that we knew the cause of it,
right?
And that was the most peculiar thing. It's a cancer that's caused by a virus.
Mm-hmm.
And the virus is called HPV, human papilloma virus, right? And it is a sexually transmitted virus.
So the age even, okay.
So you hear sexually transmitted and persons immediately go HIV or, gonorrhea or something like that. It's not one of those ones.
Okay.
It's very common as in within the first year of your sexual activity, 50% of persons have been exposed, have had an HPV infection. That's
and this is separate from a UTI or other
separate
stuff?
From a UTI,
right.
Separate from that. It's and it affects males too.
Yeah.
So HPV, it's a sexually transmitted virus. It's very transmissible. Most persons within a year of their sexual activity has been exposed. I mean, once unprotected. I should have said unprotected. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's something that your condoms will prevent you from being exposed to. But within a year of having, unprotected intercourse, you will be exposed to an HPV. And you have no symptoms. You would not know unless we test it. And a pap smear is not an HPV test.
Okay.
So a pap smear is looking for abnormal cells. We can combine it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where this whole, diversion or change in terms of cervical cancer screening came in.
Mm-hmm.
Because back in the day, we're just looking at cells. But suppose we can know if those cells have the virus in them and then know, where we are at in terms of treatment, in terms of prevention, all of that. So that's where HPV comes in. So if you're doing a pap smear, we can actually, ask for them to do HPV testing on the cells. So if they see an abnormal cell, they can then go and check, is that cell abnormal because there's HPV in it? And then further from that, if there is HPV in that cell causing that abnormality, what type? Because this is now an easy way to discuss this, because everybody knows about now COVID, and it's a virus and they have all these different Delta, Omicron, whatever, all of them. So it's the same thing with HPV. It has numerous different types. And different types cause different things. So some HPVs we have not figured out what they cause yet. Some we know cause genital warts. Some we know cause cervical cancer. Some we know cause, esophageal cancer. So it depends on what type you have. So we do your pap smear, we see abnormal cell, we check it for HPV, we type it. And at that point in time, we are armed with all our information. So we can say, you have an abnormal pap smear. It's abnormal because you have HPV. And the HPV you have is putting you at risk of cervical cancer. And this is how we're going to attack it.
So we can even do that. Do we usually do that? Because
we do it here.
I know a lot
It's a DNA test because it's HPV DNA. So we do look for, you can do HPV testing along with your pap smear.
Is that standard or only on the physician's advice or the patient's insistence?
We do it as physicians, we order it. So if I see a person and they have had an abnormal pap smear, I do request it. Like when I'm doing a biopsy or something, I request that type.
Okay.
Because it is, sometimes you have to put cost into factor.
That's it. Yeah.
So if a person says, if a patient who is aware, because some persons are aware and they'll come in and be like, well, I would like to do both. No problem, I will do it. Because what it does is that if you have a normal pap smear and they've tested you for your HPV and there's none of it, instead of doing it in the 2-yearly window that I said to you, you can now stretch it to that 5.
Yeah, okay.
You picked up the number too. So you can stretch it to that 5 because we now know we have a normal pap smear. We don't have any virus that's going to, put you at a risk for the next couple of years.
Yeah.
So in very advanced countries, when they're doing their cervical cancer screening, they do both together, and it's now on a 5-year window. That's if they're both negative.
Right.
If one comes back positive, then that changes your screening profile. But that can be added to your screening to improve stuff.
Just for absolute edification, would an abnormal pap smear can that occur without the presence of an HPV?
Yes. And I'm gonna. That was a devil's advocate question. And yes, because you remember when I told you about that ascus?
Yeah.
You can get that ascus, which is an abnormal pap smear, but it could be because you had maybe a bacterial infection or a yeast infection, and it caused that cell to look abnormal. And that's why we say give it 6 months and let's repeat and see what it is.
And this Well, I was asking about timing as well, because should a woman, when she's going to schedule her visit, should there be a particular time? Should there be particular activities that she does or doesn't do?
Sometimes it's hard whenever you get an appointment. If your period decides to come on that day, that's unfortunate, and it has happened. And I just tell them, don't panic. When it's finished, you can just always come back. We have like a little walk-in midwife clinic that we can do it for you if it's because sometimes that does happen.
Right.
But for me personally, I prefer if I were to choose the most opportune time would be like that week after your menses. Your cervix it's dynamic. Like I said, it opens to let the baby out. It closes back. So it kind of opens to let the menstrual flow out. So I get a better cell pickup and cell uptake.
More receptive to
right. Okay. I get more sample to give to my pathologist when it's still just a little bit open from the end of the menses, and it tends to be less uncomfortable for the patient too, because it's already naturally open. I don't have to go and kind of stretch it. Yeah. Yes. So that will be it. But that being said, if it's the middle of your cycle, it can still be done. But it's just in terms of if you were to choose that particular best time, that would be it.
All right. And I'm going to be as careful as I can, but only from... time. We're always told if you're going to, go swimming, don't eat before you swim.
Yeah. Right? I think I know what you're going to ask.
Okay, well, help us then.
It would be ill-advised. So remember, we're looking at cells.
Yes.
So we really just want to get the cervical cells. So we don't want any other. Okay.
So for those who are listening, like anything else, you're going to interview, dress, shower, put on your good clothes because you want to make a good impression. Your appointment is scheduled. Maybe avoid exercise and certain activities prior.
That's a funny way to call it, exercise activities. Okay, we'll call it that.
Hey, my mother might be listening.
Okay.
No, because at the end of the day, it's a lot. And I say this because I think, men in particular are not always as receptive, sensitive to certain things. But even as women, they may not appreciate. Some cultures do a better job at educating, advising, informing, and getting people to a place of knowledge when they're doing certain things. Even exam prep, for instance, get a good night's rest and have a good breakfast. But that may depend on the person, right? And how do we do stuff? Likewise, with your physician, know the questions that you want to ask, be prepared to ask them, and try to understand, what is being shared. But there are things you can do. I mean, don't just put glitter on. Yeah. Be ready.
I just remembered I had digressed from your question. So actually, when we spoke about timing, and I had spoken about the HPV.
Yeah.
So we're gonna get back at that when you talk about the vaccine. But the actual age of ideal age of doing your pap smear is at age 21. And that is based for your first pap smear, and that's based on your sexual activity.
I was gonna ask.
Because remember, I said what causes it is a sexually transmitted virus. So if you've gotten to the age of 21 and you're not sexually active, meaning no heavy petting, no exposure to any sexual fluids, you don't need to do one. But in that case, I would say, okay, if you've hit to 21 and you're not sexually active, then a year after your first intercourse after that. Because remember, I said you're exposed within that year.
Yeah, right.
So that's where that goes. The only time you'll deviate from that, meaning doing it earliest, is somebody who's in an immunocompromised state. Because it is a virus and your immune system does protect your body from viral infections and stuff. So if you are immunocompromised, say you've started sexual activity 16, 18, and you're immunocompromised, waiting till that age of 21 may be doing you a disservice because your immune system being exposed to the HPV might have held on to it and it had started doing changes to your cells. Yeah. So you do have persons that you would pick out that be like, you can't wait till you're 21. We're going to do you earlier.
See, this is where I keep, we reflect on the conversation with our CIPS and NDC earlier relative to speeding and the way we as drivers are on the road. So much comes, to the individual and being responsible. society, this society, we have so many ages of consent, sexual activity, driver's license, voting,
different
all these
ones.
things, right? And I think that there needs to be a genuine approach to how we look at things, so that we're socially conscious, individually responsible, and trying to position ourselves to be better. So after the break, Dr. Rios, maybe we can chat some more. Always appreciate when you guys come across, because we get to learn. We can talk about HPV vaccine. I think it's, so many, as you said, but the vaccine itself only covers the more popular ones, so maybe you can help us to understand that. And you said it's preventable, right? Not just treatable, but preventable. We'll talk about that as well. All right. I'm going to pause and take the break, but when we come back, we'll ask you to join us. If you wish to ask a question, if you need to share and lead us in a direction, we'll go right ahead, 949-8037, or toll free 1-800-534-8255.
Radio Cayman, the voice, the heart, the soul of the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
With your latest headlines, I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins. Radio Cayman is receiving reports of another possible COVID-related death in the islands. We've reached out to government communications officials for confirmation and will provide an update when received. To date, the Cayman Islands have recorded 12 COVID-related deaths. In international news, 2 Los Angeles police officers were fired for chasing Pokemon rather than fleeing robbers, court documents show. The pair were parked nearby when a radio call came in for officers to respond to a shop robbery, but a review of their in-car camera footage showed they had been playing Pokemon Go and chose to pursue a nearby Snorlax, a relatively rare catch, instead of providing backup. The pair denied playing the game but were fired after an investigation. Magawa, the famous mine-clearing rat who was awarded a gold medal for his heroism, has died at the age of 8. In a 5-year career, the rodent sniffed out over 100 landmines and other explosives in Cambodia. Magawa was the most successful rat trained by the Belgian charity Apopo to alert human handlers about the mines so they can be safely removed. The charity said the African giant pouch rat passed away peacefully over the weekend. The global economy faces a grim outlook, World Bank President David Malpass has warned, as the aftershocks of the pandemic continue to weigh on growth, especially in poor countries. His organization's latest forecast predicts global growth will slow to 4.1% this year from 5.5% in 2021. It attributed the slowdown to virus threats, government aid unwinding, and an initial rebound in demand fading. These are your headlines. I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins. For the latest in news and information,
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year! Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome.
Guess what? We're back. And we wish you a Happy New Year from the Flex family.
This week on the Flex, we will be having caring teachers. The word of the week is adulting.
I'm adulting. Don't make fun of my adulting. That's insulting. Spell it.
ADULTING. It is a noun that means the practice of behaving like a responsible adult, especially the accomplishment of mundane but necessary tasks.
And maybe some other adulting Flex family will pass through.
Hi! How are you? You can join us this Wednesday from 4 to 5 p.m. right here on Radio Cayman, 89.9 FM. YouFlex, a program for all people by young people. YouFlex, more than talk.
When I look at where I'm coming from, I know I'm blessed, and I close my eyes and smile. Sometimes I feel.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thanks so much for joining us. Normally we treat our guests with such hospitality. So hospitable that they're more comfortable. But Dr. Reeves, you and your colleagues are always welcome here, and you always help us to come away feeling empowered, encouraged, educated, informed, and better advocates for ourselves. So hopefully that helps us.
Thank you.
But thank you so much. When we hear cancers in particular, I know it is alarming. It's concerning, in many ways. In the same breath, very glad that we can have public discussions where people learn, they understand, appreciate that there are things we can do, and now to understand that not only is cervical cancer treatable, it's preventable if we would do the right things. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're helping us to do the right thing. All right. The vaccination is the HPV vaccine that we're talking about. I know there are some still ongoing discussions in many jurisdictions about when you should take it and all those things, and I have my views, but only from listening to informed media. But anyway,
so right. So like with every vaccine, it's controversial. New vaccines, they're controversial.
Right.
This is not as new, so it's not like a COVID vaccine. This has been around.
A few years.
So it's gotten FDA approvals. It's gotten improvements. So it's been around. So in terms of when we were saying cervical cancer, it's caused by a virus, the viral exposure. So it would make more sense if we are going to give a vaccine to prevent something, you give it before that exposure. And I remember when the vaccine was coming out, that was a big thing where you were talking about ages of consent because they said give it to your 9 to 12-year-olds. But you have to catch them before. And remember, it's more than one dose. So it's really advised to be taken. Average age, if you want to do it, it's about your 9 to 12-year-olds. So it moved away from us being gynecologists, and then the pediatricians offering this vaccine as a preventable. Now, it's not a mandatory vaccine. It's a vaccine by choice. So you can come and you can request it if you want to vaccinate your daughter, but you can also vaccinate your sons, because remember I said different types cause different things and it's sexually transmitted. So I always say you vaccinate your daughter, you're protecting your daughter. You vaccinate your son, you're protecting your daughter-in-law in the future.
I tell you,
so males can get it too, so it's at that age. And whereas we are talking about cervical cancer, the HPVs do cause other cancers in males, so it can cause penile cancer and stuff as well. So there is protection in terms of vaccinating your sons as well. So that's the standard age of giving it. You give it in 2 doses. Now, there was the question with, okay, so suppose you were already exposed. Suppose you are now in your 20s and you're exposed. Can you get it? So it is slated you can get it up to the age of 24, 26. And it's fine. You can get it. And that's 2 doses.
2 doses.
Yes. But I've had persons who have come in and they're like, well, I'm 28. I'm just outside the window and I want it. And I've been told I can't get it. And that's where different things come in and different understandings of how the vaccine works and when you can get it. So the vaccine comes in 3 doses. If you've gotten 2 doses, that's before you're exposed, you're covered with your 2 doses.
Before you're exposed.
Right. So when you're 9 to 12-year-olds, they're getting 2 doses. They're getting 2 shots.
Okay. How far apart? Sorry, just how far apart are the shots?
It's 6 months, but usually they want you to complete it in a year. So if something happened, in 2020 when we were on lockdown, somebody got their first dose, they couldn't get their second dose. Once you get the second follow-up dose within the year, you're good. You're still covered.
Right,
so you need your 2 doses within a 1 year window.
1 year, okay.
So if you've never been exposed and you go for your HPV vaccine, you're going to get 2 doses. If you're older, you're sexually active, you may even have had an abnormal pap smear, which shows that, you had HPV and we treated you, we cleared it. So we did our procedure, we cleared it, and you've repeated your pap smear and you're now clear. Okay. You can get your HPV vaccine, but you're now going to get 3 doses. You've already been exposed. We are not sure when we cleared it, did we really fully clear it?
Right.
So once you're outside of that 24 window, which they said that's when they have, if you read the pamphlets and everything, they said it's for 24 years. You can get it, but that time you can't just go into public health and say, okay, I can request it. That one has to be now ordered by a physician. So I have physician requested for my patients, can you give them the HPV vaccine? And you will get 3 doses, same 1 year window.
Okay, so 3 doses within 1 year.
Yeah.
As opposed to the person who
is younger who would get 2.
It's the same vaccine injection for that time. And then the 3rd dose then is, I guess, well, the difference being...
You've already been exposed. So what happens is that, I don't know if everybody has noticed this, but viruses are intracellular organisms. So that's why they're so tricky. Yeah. When they get into our body, they hide in our cells. So it's very hard for immune system to find them, pick them up, mount an immune response because they're already inside our cells hiding. And that's how HPV is so able to get into our cells and sit there and cause a cancer, and our immune system does nothing about it because they're in our cells. Yeah. So what the vaccine is doing is pretty much exposing it. So when we give it, we're giving it into your bloodstream. Normally how it gets there, like I said, it's something sexual. It gets from a scratch on the skin and it goes into your cell. So what we're doing, instead of getting it in there that way, we're putting it in your blood. So it's now exposed to your immune cells. It didn't get to go in and hide into a tissue cell like it normally did. It got put right into your bloodstream where your immune cells are, and it gets to mount an immune response. And when it gets to do that, now it can then identify it before it even gets into that cell. When you become re-exposed or ever exposed, it can identify you before you even get into the body's cell to go and hide and keep you away from causing an infection.
And it helped me to ask and answer this properly. We think back to what may have been a practice in some of us, perhaps even as parents. We were told one child gets the chicken pox, for instance, they would scab it and then let the others get it, and then a natural sort of response. I think that's something that may have happened in some of our homes in some of our countries, right? Probably effective to some extent as getting the vaccination.
That is kind of like the basis of vaccine technology, what you just explained.
Yeah.
So you're pretty much, when you're doing that, you're giving your child like a weakened form of the chicken pox. You may not get a fully blown chicken pox, but your body was, exposed to it, and it was enough for you to mount an immune response. So that's pretty much what the HPV vaccine is doing. It's exposing your immune system to this virus, so that when your immune system now knows that this is foreign and I see it again when it is introduced through sexual activity, it can attack, kill, remove it before it gets to go into your cell and start to cause the changes that will lead to cervical cancer.
And given then that it's sexually transmitted, HPV, cervical cancer, and the like, if you were to contract it that way as opposed to through an injection, even though it enters your body, the consequence is different
because of how the virus itself works. So when most persons will be like, but that's what was the question with, but if I already have HPV, why are you giving me a vaccine? And when then I explain to them how the HPV works naturally compared to how it works in the vaccine, then they right. So I could still get the vaccine. It will protect me. So it may clear what I have and then prevent me from what would come in the future because of how it's administered.
We know with tetanus shots, that's what you used to call them, maybe I should use a different word these days, and other similar things, they last, it depends if it's the US or the British protocol, 5-10 years, and other things. With HPV, let's say you got the 2 or the 3 doses, is that it then for life, or do you get it
for again? Now? Notice I said for now. Research is ongoing. So for now, they think that with getting your vaccine and doing your pap smears, because getting the vaccine doesn't
preclude you from...
No, you don't. It doesn't protect you. I'm saying that you're absolved of doing your pap smears. But for now, getting the vaccine and doing your pap smears have proven to be protective. I guess if they want to put it in complete prevention, maybe they might say it. You might hear in a couple of years that you should get a booster. And the reason why you still do your pap smears is the vaccine doesn't have, and I told you that there are different variants of the HPV. We don't have all of them.
I say 5 or 6. I think it covers.
It covers, So they have. Remember, I said that they have. So when it started, I think Gardasil had started off with, I think 2 or 4. And now they're up to Gardasil 10. We might not have the 10 here, but I think a couple of years ago they put it in 10. So you'd have 10 different variants. Now, the reason is why you can't just throw all of them in. Just like with everything else, you get a reaction to a vaccine. So the more material we're giving to you, the more your body's going to respond, the sicker you would feel. So we try to hone it down and say, okay, these are the ones that cause cervical cancer. What's the next genital problem? It causes warts. These are the commonest ones. So they just,
Yeah, the most prevalent ones.
Right.
Is what,
They gave you the most prevalent ones, but there are other ones there that could cause disease as well that you may be, because you're protected against these ones then cause. So we still have to do our pap smears to change it. And what the vaccine was pretty much doing is, because now your immune system is sensitized to it, it pretty much, you may get a change in your pap smear, but it will never reach to a cancer because the vaccine at some point in time is going to kick in and kill those cells. So that's where the pap smear comes in.
You answer that question. I thank you. See, you're a great teacher. All right, we're going to find a quick break to take. When we come back, we'll ask you to recap, to share with us, and hopefully not just the ladies that are listening, our mothers or sisters or spouses and the like, but us as the men in their lives, encourage them. Sometimes it may be just to drive with them. We don't go in, we stay in the car if that's the case, but just encourage them because it's our health and well-being.
True.
And you remind us how easy and accessible it is. So when we come back, we'll continue. All right, please rejoin us right after the break.
Explore your history. Explore your land. Explore your sister islands, the ultimate staycation experience. Your culture, your freedom, the land that time forgot isn't gone. It's your sister islands.
Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
Families are like branches on a tree. We grow in different directions, yet our roots remain deeply intertwined as one. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, has remained stable, strong, and deeply rooted in the community. The past 2 years have been very difficult, but they have taught all of us the value of family and embracing our loved ones. This 2022, Savannah Pharmacy encourages everyone to get in touch with your roots, embrace your heritage, show some extra love to your neighbor, and make the year a memorable one. Time is precious. Cherish it and those you love. Savannah Pharmacy, always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336 or WhatsApp your Savannah Pharmacy prescription to 929-5045.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Let me tell you something. I've been fishing our island since I was a boy, and it's getting harder and harder to get a good catch. Maybe it's because there are so many more people in Cayman than ever before. Maybe it's because of how the climate is changing. I don't know about that, but I do know that I want to be able to keep fishing and teach my children to fish one day as well. So it makes sense to me that we have certain areas and certain times of the year to fish for certain things. This year, a new rule was placed on fishing for grouper that says no one can fish for nass or grouper anywhere in Cayman from December 1st to April 30th while they're spawning. There is also no fishing allowed at all for any kinds of fish in the spawning zones and no scuba diving there either. It feels unfair not to be allowed to fish where my dad had taught me to fish, but I know that being patient now means we can keep fishing for many more generations. We're all in this together, right?
For more info, download the Cayman DOE app or visit doe.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. And thanks again for sharing with us. And thanks too for this opportunity with Dr. Rhonda Reeves. You're taking a subject that could be, for many of us, obviously and understandably very sensitive. We're speaking publicly to people, but you present it in a way that gives us a sense of courage, a sense of confidence, and an understanding that we can take ownership and now to appreciate the consequences of doing nothing relative to cancer and cervical cancer in particular. We don't need to read too much or go too far to understand that this can be
prevented.
Yeah. So that is good. Now we know that increasing lifestyle choices, diet, exercise, sleep, and the like, other choices relative to our activities, whatever they may be, become sensible if we're engaged. How do we say so? Well, socially and casually, we should be sensible and responsible. Yes. So the use of prophylactics and the like would assist us. Oh, that's diplomacy for you, boy.
Yes, it
Even
is.
From West
Thank
Wales.
you for doing that.
Somebody's going to say, can you translate what he just said? Wear a condom if you have sex.
That's exactly it.
Oh, my mom going, jeez.
That's exactly it. And that's one of the best protections because, like I said, the cause of it is a virus.
Right. And the availability and accessibility within this community. I think for some, they find it amazing and almost unbelievable. Like, really, we have that here.
Yes, we do.
We do. We have the competence, like you and your colleagues. We have the resources. We have the investment, from governments and the private sector entities. We just need to be knowledgeable and go and avail ourselves. Yeah. All right. This month of January, today the month is almost just about done if you think about it.
Yeah, spin 2 time, yeah.
Yeah. My mom said 2 licks and a promise, and they go, spin 2 time. I have all that. What do you want your patients and prospective patients to understand? Not just emphasize the fact that it's preventable. Yeah.
That it exists, first of all.
Yeah.
Surprisingly enough, I've actually, in recent times, have persons who don't even know what a pap smear is and what it's doing.
Wow.
What's the purpose of it. So it's really to make you aware of not only cervical cancer, but your pap smears, to get you less afraid of coming in to get it done as your, your annual, or in this case, every 2 yearly checks. And to just pretty much arm you with the information. You know it exists. You know how to prevent it, and you know how in your lifestyles to prevent you from getting pushing yourself at risk of getting HPV or getting a cervical cancer. So that's
as I listen, I'm thinking us as parents, as we bring our daughters for different checks at different times, maybe starting the conversation. Us as the women, maybe we're not going to the physician, we haven't come to see you for this particular examination and like, but maybe even talking so that we get to that space where we're comfortable, we're knowledgeable about it. We hear jokes from even the people themselves, the comedians, about how these exams perform and how they feel. Maybe one day it'll be a little bit different, but for now, it's what it is, right?
So it's really, that's what when I said to you, I thought that was what you were going to say. That was a stigma. It's uncomfortable. And like I said, it is uncomfortable, but it's one of those things that I consider a necessary evil.
Yeah.
If you want to, prevent, if you want to, protect yourself from it.
Think about the quality of life you have by doing this small thing. Think about, eventually, let's say you want to be able to have children and the like, what this means, and doing that.
It will affect your fertility.
Right.
You brought up a good point. You remember I said that's where it is. It's the part of it. So if you have, a cervical cancer, we have to keep on doing stuff and doing surgeries on your cervix. It's going to further down affect your fertility. And
for whatever reason, maybe it's not your choice. Maybe you've done with children, you've had your 4 or 10 or 2.5 or whatever it is. Your actual life, the fact that you're now living, not just a quality of living, but that your life. I can say that because women are going, yeah, but you never had to subject yourself. Yeah, we do the DRE and the other stuff as well. So,
that's your counter one, yeah.
Yeah, hey, just for what it's worth.
But you see, and then that's also it. Yours is a detection, or is a prevention.
Yeah.
And worldwide, I'm not talking about Cayman statistics because it's a little bit skewed in terms of reporting, but worldwide statistics, it's the second most common female cancer. So why is it preventable? But yes, it's the second most common one. It should be way down on the list. I was looking at that statistic, and I'm glad that you referenced that. And I'm thinking that, one, is it society's sort of misguided perceptions in a sense of the stigma and the way we, again, probably women, telling their female friends, their daughters, inadvertently, unconsciously,
I hate going to do this because of, and they paint this picture, and I'm thinking of a young child hearing something for the first time, sometimes with awe and amazement, sometimes with just incredulous. So then the men who are in the circle, these conversations transpire as adults.
True.
We come away going, oh my God, that is horrible, right? But then if we take away that stigma, like we did with the talking about cancers publicly, maybe these conversations will get people to a place listen. Well, I can know that coming to see you, Dr. Lamsey, and the others, life is a whole lot easier because you are, I don't want to say front and center. That would not be the right thing to say.
No, not front and center. No, I'm not.
But you make it that it's important, and you make it that it's something that we should do, and there's such a great level of respect for what you do. So hopefully the women now who haven't scheduled theirs for a long time will do so.
Please do.
How do we do that? I mean, the HSA...
So HSA, it's done through our Women's Health Clinic. It's not only physicians do it. We have midwives who are trained, so you can come and you can get it done at another visit. Even if your family planning visit, if you come for your birth control, your midwife that's there that's issuing it can do your pap smear. So you can sometimes you can mention it at your visit, or you can actually have one scheduled in the Women's Health Department. And we have expanded. So our Women's Health Services extends into the districts. So we have, in West Bay, we have gynecologists in the district there, and we also have in Boddentown to serve the two outer ends of the island. So you don't need to come all the way into Georgetown. If you're in West Bay, you can go and schedule an appointment with your gynecologist there, or if you're in the eastern districts, you can come to Boddentown and schedule it there as well.
All right, Dr. Hughes, we do have one caller joining us. We go to our phones. In the studio, Dr. Rhonda Hughes, the head of Women's Health at HSA. Good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon, Sterling Glenn.
Afternoon, sir.
I just want to thank you so very much for this program and the other one also. And to this wonderful doctor here who was explaining things in such an easy layman type of terms.
Yes, sir.
People would understand the seriousness and effectiveness of these things, these modern miracles, so to put it that way. But just to say what Mr. Locke said earlier on, I caught a little bit about when he said, more often on the radio, if we could have these things more often on the radio. And I'd just like to ask the good doctor here, if they go around to the schools and talk to these teenage students and young people, 12 years old, 13, so forth, with this message taken out to them, because in this day and age, as we know, with all the surrounding them and the type of messages they get, encouraging them to do anything at all or whatever, this is a light, a beacon in the darkness. And so to speak, as you said, you can't understand why it's so. This is number one cancer when it's so easily preventable. If people just get these things in their head that this is the way this is the way to help you. God wants us to be good, but not stupid. People find all kinds of religious opposition to things, and that's not right. You never hear a preacher preaching you not to go and take care of yourself. This is what is needed. Go around to the schools if you can, if you have the time. I know you must be very busy. But this kind of message to the schools. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much for your comment as well. Thank you. It's well received.
Thank you. And I'm glad that caller shared that, because hopefully others listening would have been as receptive.
Yes.
And you are, as we shared, a good teacher. So I understand. We did have another question posed to us off here about the age. And if I understood as it was relayed to me, not only when the person should start, their test, as you shared earlier, and when to stop.
Yes. So when I was still in residency, it was 65. Based on if you're 65 and you're having regular pap smears and they're all negative, if you think about it, the timeline to 10 years to contract something would be 75.
and you'd have already done your 10 based on what we're talking about your lifespan.
I'm looking for 120.
Exactly. You would have thought that, okay, by the time you get to there, the person's, the quality of life, they wouldn't be able to go through treatments and stuff like that. So that was it. But if we're looking now, we've seen, I have patients walk into my clinic, they're 80 years old and they're looking 50.
And they're enjoying life.
Exactly. So if you're 65, have been having regular pap smears, not sexually active, you can stop.
Okay. Not.
If you're a nice young 65, like a 65 looking 40, sexually active, you can continue. It's advised you continue.
Remember actually after the break, because we need to talk about active and the aged, right? And we need to stop putting labels and limitations on ourselves and on people. Like the caller says, God wants you to be, sensible, not stupid, right? And so I'm glad that you answer that question as to when to stop. Your health is your wealth.
That is true.
And when we go to the physician to check our cholesterol and our heart rate and all the other stuff, let's look at the other things, because we want to enjoy life. And if something's preventable, then let's not have to worry about...
One less thing to worry about.
Exactly.
Yep.
You and your team, really, really grateful that we have this resource. I trust that as a society we have continuing greater expectations, and as professionals, irrespective of where we are, that we continue to raise our own bar and deliver higher and higher standards, so that it's done with a love, a competence, but a careful consideration, for that positive contribution. So thank you for teaching us this afternoon.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure to be here.
Oh, it always is, and I trust that all our guests feel warm, inviting and welcome to our Talk Today studio.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Mr. Fox, you can pick the song of choice today. I won't ask Dr. Reeves anything. I don't have anything in particular. The song I would want to play, he would say that would probably be better for Joel to play in the Super Jam, so I'll leave that for later. Until tomorrow, my friends, we invite you to have a blessed, safe, productive, enjoyable, and peaceful afternoon. Until then, be blessed.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays.